Welcome to Points of Interest, a video series brought to you by the Investor Protection Clinic at Osgoode Hall Law School and sponsored by the Law Foundation of Ontario. It can be challenging to understand how capital markets are regulated. This episode will introduce you to the regulators and their roles. This episode will also explain the registration requirements for advisors and firms you may want to invest with. Two types of regulatory bodies oversee the Canadian capital markets. The first includes provincial and territorial securities regulators. The second includes a self-regulatory organization, or SRO. Let's first take a look at the provincial and territorial securities regulators. Each province and territory has a local securities regulator. The securities regulators are government bodies who fall under the authority of provincial ministers of finance. Each regulator is primarily responsible for administering its own provincial or territorial securities laws. Each regulator develops policies to address capital market issues in its own province, territory, or jurisdiction. These regulators also coordinate with the commissions across the country in an effort to create nationwide consistency. The Ontario Securities Commission, or OSC, is the provincial securities regulator in Ontario. The OSC has four main purposes, which can be found in the Ontario Securities Act. 1. To protect investors from unfair, improper, or fraudulent practices. 2. To foster fair and efficient capital markets and confidence in capital markets. 3. To foster capital formation. And 4. To contribute to the stability of the financial system. The OSC supports this mandate by making rules, monitoring compliance with, and enforcing compliance with securities law. It does this by investigating and addressing complaints from the public about registered investment firms and individuals. Let's now take a closer look at the SRO.
The Canadian Investment Regulatory Authority, or CIRO, is Canada's new self-regulatory organization. It's replaced both the Investment Industry Regulatory Organization of Canada and the Mutual Fund Dealers Association of Canada. CIRO has taken on the responsibilities of the old SROs, which includes supervising investment dealers, mutual fund dealers, and trading activities within Canada's debt and equity marketplaces. The primary objective of CIRO is to protect investors. They do this by making sure that rules are followed consistently, which helps build trust among Canadian investors. Now that we've identified the key players regulating the capital markets in Canada, it's important to understand the broader registration requirements which apply to firms and the individuals who participate in the capital markets.
My name is Elizabeth King. I'm Deputy Director of Registrant Conduct at the Ontario Securities Commission. A firm and individual must be registered under securities laws in order to sell securities, meaning, for example, stocks and bonds, mutual funds, exchange-traded funds. Registration is important for four key reasons. First is skills. Registration tells you that the person has the proficiency to offer you products and services in the category of registration that they are registered in. Second is acting ethically. Integrity is a key component of what we assess when we make a determination to register an individual. We conduct background checks, police checks, and solvency checks before we register individuals, and we also have individuals and firms both have ongoing obligations once they are registered. Third is suitability. A registered dealer and advisor is required to offer you products and services that are suitable for you. Finally, it's not everything. Just because somebody is registered doesn't mean that they will always offer you good advice. It's not a guarantee that you will make money or that you won't lose money. The Ontario Securities Commission registers firms and individuals who are in the business of trading and advising in securities or who manage investment funds. An individual's registration category tells you what products or services they can offer. However, being registered doesn't mean that all the same services will be offered or that the same fees will be charged or that the person has the same skills. So you need to know who you're dealing with and understand their qualifications and the products and services that they offer. Registered firms must have proficient individuals who lead the firm. We register the ultimate designated person, which is typically the chief executive officer of the firm, as well as the chief compliance officer. And together they're responsible to implement an appropriate compliance and supervisory system at the firm. Registered firms also must meet capital and insurance obligations. They must file their financial statements with us and meet ongoing registrant obligations. When we turn to individuals, they also must meet certain proficiency requirements, and those are comprised of both coursework as well as defined experience requirements. An investor can find out if a person or firm is registered by going to the website checkbeforeyouinvest.ca, and it's possible from there to check the registration as well as to link through to another website which will show you what we call the disciplined list that will identify if the firm or individual is subject to regulatory discipline. If you find out that your investment advisor has been disciplined, you want to find out more about that discipline to find out if the conduct that gave rise to the discipline is relevant to you. Does it mean that you are comfortable continuing to work with that investment advisor? And you can find out about that by speaking to the compliance department at the firm that sponsors the individual's registration. You can also reach out to the Ontario Securities Commission through the contact center. Before acting on investment advice given by a person or a business, you should know, who are you working with? What does your investment involve? What is your risk tolerance? Make a plan and ask questions.
As we bring this episode to a close, here are the key points of interest from an introduction to regulating securities. 1. There's now a single self-regulatory body in Canada for investment services, which is CIRO. 2. An individual or firm's registration category indicates what services and products they can provide. Be sure to understand which products and services your investment firm or advisor is legally allowed to offer by making yourself familiar with the Understanding Registration document linked in the description below. 3. Check registration with your provincial and territorial securities regulator. Any firm or individual in the business of trading in or advising on securities in your province or territory must be registered with the local securities regulator. To confirm whether the firm or advisor that you're dealing with is registered in your province, visit the OSC link included in the description below. 4. If you have been receiving investment advice from a firm or an individual who's not registered, understand that the firm or individual's activities may be illegal and consider notifying the securities regulator in your province. 5. You can also conduct a background check on any firm or advisor. Visit the OSC link listed in the description below for a summary of the different databases which contain disciplinary records for individuals and firms.
The Investor Protection Clinic at Osgoode Hall Law School acts for investors who believe their investments have been mishandled and who cannot afford legal representation. The Investor Protection Clinic is the first clinic in Canada to offer free legal advice to retail investors. If you have any questions about the IPC's services, this episode, or any other episode in the Points of Interest series, please feel free to contact us.